Un solo disparo impugio a la chica Apache a un matrimonio sin salida. Mariana woke up early in the soft light of the desert morning. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting the sky with streaks of orange and pink. Her small home, made of clay and wooden beams, was quiet except for the distant sound of birds singing and the faint murmur of the nearby stream. It was a peaceful morning, one that felt ordinary yet held a certain magic in its simplicity. Mariana stretched her arms, feeling the warmth of the sun on her skin, and smiled quietly to herself. Life in the village was simple, but it was a life she had always cherished. She moved to the small kitchen, where her mother was already preparing breakfast. The smell of fresh corn tortillas and roasted coffee filled the air. Mariana's younger brother, little Tomas, ran around the room, laughing as he tried to avoid spilling his glass of milk. Her father was sitting outside, repairing one of the old wooden carts used to carry goods to the market. The village was small, surrounded by desert and low hills, and everyone knew each other. There was a sense of community here that Mariana loved deeply. Despite the peacefulness, Mariana often felt a quiet longing inside her. She loved her family and her village, but she also dreamed of something more. She wanted to learn about the world beyond the desert, to read books she had never seen, and to meet people from faraway places. Every evening, she would sit outside under the open sky, looking at the stars, imagining what life might be like in cities full of lights, music, and stories. Her mother sometimes watched her quietly, understanding the spark in her daughter's eyes, though she never spoke of it openly. Today, however, was not an ordinary day. The village was preparing for a festival, a celebration of the harvest and the strength of their community. Colorful banners hung between the adobe houses, and children ran around, their laughter echoing across the dusty streets. Women carried baskets of fruits and vegetables, preparing tables with all the food they had grown themselves. The smell of roasted corn, sweet beans, and fresh bread filled every corner. The men repaired benches and set up small wooden stages where performances would be held later in the evening. It was a day of joy, one of those days when the whole village came alive in a bright, noisy celebration. Mariana felt both excitement and nervousness as she helped her mother lay out dishes for the feast. She was proud of her family, proud of the food they had grown and the work they had done, but part of her couldn't help thinking about the wider world outside the village. She wondered what it would be like to see cities where the streets never slept, where people spoke languages she had never heard, and where stories unfolded in ways she could only imagine. Still, she pushed the thoughts aside. Today was for the festival, and she wanted to be present, to feel the laughter and warmth of her people. As the morning turned to afternoon, the villagers began arriving in larger numbers. Families came together, dressed in bright colors, women with intricate braids in their hair and men wearing traditional embroidered shirts. Children ran from stall to stall, playing games and shouting happily. Music filled the air, a mixture of drums, flutes, and the soft sound of string instruments. Mariana felt her heart lift as she watched the celebrations. For a moment, she forgot about her dreams and simply enjoyed the joy around her. She danced lightly with her friends, laughing as they spun under the bright sun. The warmth of the day and the happiness of the festival seemed to make everything perfect, as if nothing could go wrong in this small corner of the world. Yet beneath the laughter there was an undercurrent of tension that few noticed. The desert was not always kind and the village was not always safe. Families often had disagreements, sometimes small, sometimes large, over land, water, or old traditions. Rumors traveled quickly, and misunderstandings could escalate into serious problems. Mariana had grown up hearing stories of disputes that started over the smallest things and ended in conflict. Her parents had always told her to be careful, to respect the traditions, and to always stay calm in the face of trouble. She had taken those words seriously, But she had also never imagined that trouble could arrive in the middle of a festival, on a day that was meant to be full of laughter and joy. As the sun began to lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the village, Mariana helped her mother finish setting the final dishes on the tables. The villagers were gathering near the center, where the performances were about to begin. Music played, and children performed dances they had practiced for weeks. Mariana watched the movements, clapping along, feeling the energy and pride of her people. She noticed her father talking with some of the other men, pointing towards the hills on the edge of the village. She followed his gaze and saw a figure moving quickly across the sand, carrying something she could not recognize. Her heart skipped a beat, but she dismissed it, assuming it was just one of the many villagers coming to join the celebration. Then, without warning, a loud shot rang out. The sound was sharp and piercing, echoing across the village. For a moment, everyone froze, unsure where it had come from. Children cried, women screamed, and the music stopped abruptly. Mariana's heart raced, and she felt a cold fear grip her. The figure she had seen on the hill disappeared suddenly, leaving only a cloud of dust behind. People shouted and ran in every direction, trying to find safety. Mariana's mother grabbed her hand, pulling her close, and her father called out for Tomas, who was hiding behind a table. The celebration had turned into chaos in the blink of an eye. Mariana did not understand what had happened, only that the peace of her life had been shattered by a single sound. Her dreams, her laughter, and the bright sun above now felt distant and fragile. She clung to her family, trying to make sense of the panic around her. Whispers spread quickly among the villagers. Someone had fired a shot near the festival. No one knew who, why, or whether anyone had been hurt, but the damage had been done. The sense of safety, the carefree joy of the morning had vanished. Mariana felt a tight knot in her stomach, a feeling she had never experienced before. Fear mixed with confusion and the first sense of danger in her life. As the villagers gathered to discuss what had happened, Mariana noticed the glances her parents exchanged. There was worry in their eyes, worry she had never seen before. Her mother held her hand tightly, and her father spoke quietly with the elders, their voices serious and low. Mariana tried to listen, but the words were unclear, lost in the noise of frightened voices. She felt a strange sense of being pulled into a story much larger than herself, a story she did not understand and could not control. The festival, once a symbol of happiness and community, now felt like the beginning of something that might change her life forever. Despite the fear, Mariana also felt a spark of determination. She did not know what the future held, but she wanted to stay strong, to help her family, and to face whatever came next with courage. Even as the sun set and the shadows grew long, she refused to let panic consume her. She helped her mother guide Tomas to a safe place, and she stayed close to her father, listening to every word and every plan. Mariana realized that life could change in an instant, that joy and danger were often only separated by a thin line. And even though she did not know what lay ahead, she felt a quiet resolve forming within her. As the evening approached, the villagers began to calm down, though the tension remained. Discussions about what had caused the shot, who might be responsible, and what should be done dominated every conversation. Mariana sat quietly with her family, feeling a mixture of fear, sadness, and curiosity. She thought about the life she had known, the simple joys of her home, and the dreams that had seemed so far away. Now, those dreams felt more urgent than ever. She wanted to learn, to explore, to understand the world beyond her village. But she also realized that the choices of others and the sudden events of life could shape her path in unexpected ways. That night, as the stars appeared in the clear desert sky, Mariana lay awake thinking about everything that had happened. The festival, the laughter, the shot, and the fear. It all seemed like a story she had only just stepped into, a story that would continue long after this night. She closed her eyes and made a silent promise to herself. No matter what came, she would stay true to who she was, and she would find a way to face the challenges ahead. The village slept, the stars watched over her, and Mariana felt both small and strong at the same time, ready to begin the next chapter of her life. The morning after the festival, the village was quiet, but the tension from the previous day still hung heavy in the air. The laughter and music of the celebration were replaced by whispers and worried glances. Mariana woke up to the sound of her father talking with the elders outside. Their voices were low but serious, carrying the weight of decisions that could affect the entire village. She rose from her bed slowly, feeling a strange mix of curiosity and fear. She knew that something had changed, that life as she knew it had shifted after the single shot that shattered the festival. Mariana's mother was already in the kitchen, preparing breakfast in silence. The usual warmth of the morning seemed absent. Mariana noticed her mother's hands trembling slightly as she kneaded the dough for tortillas. Her little brother, Tomas, clutched a small toy and looked up at Mariana with wide eyes. "Is everything okay?" he asked in a small voice. Mariana tried to smile to comfort him, but she could feel her own worry rising inside her. "I think so," she said, though her voice was uncertain. Deep down, she knew that the shot had set off a chain of events far bigger than anyone could have imagined. As she stepped outside, she saw her father speaking with several village elders. Their faces were grave, their eyes darting toward the hills where the figure had disappeared the day before. Mariana approached cautiously, her heart pounding. "What happened, Papa?" she asked softly. Her father looked at her for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then he spoke carefully. "Something happened yesterday. A shot was fired near the festival. No one was hurt, but it caused fear, and now we must consider our next steps. The village must remain safe." Mariana's mind raced. She tried to understand why a single shot could create so much worry. The village had always had disagreements, sometimes loud, sometimes quiet, but nothing like this had ever happened during a celebration. People were talking about honor, about responsibility, about making sure the family involved did not lose respect in the community. Mariana's father explained that some villagers believed that an immediate solution was needed to prevent further problems. Though Mariana did not understand all the customs and traditions, she could feel the seriousness in her father's voice. By midday, the village square filled with people again, but this time not for celebration. The elders had called a meeting, and the villagers gathered with anxious expressions. Mariana sat close to her mother and Tomas, listening to the voices of the elders as they spoke. They discussed what had happened, who might have been responsible for the shot, and what consequences were necessary to restore balance. Mariana noticed the way people looked at her family, and she felt a sudden weight of responsibility settle on her young shoulders. The shot had not only changed the festival, it had changed the way the village saw her family. Whispers spread quickly. "The girl's family must resolve this," some said. "It is the only way to maintain honor." Mariana's heart sank. She did not fully understand what was meant by resolve, but the tone of the conversations left little doubt. The elders were serious, and the villagers nodded in agreement. She looked at her father, hoping for reassurance, but she saw the same worry in his eyes. He spoke quietly to her mother. "We must protect her. We must follow the tradition, even if it is difficult." Mariana realized that the single shot had set a chain of events into motion, events she could not control. Her mind raced as she tried to imagine what would happen next. Could she still continue her studies, her dreams of exploring the world? Could she still have the life she had imagined under the stars? The festival, once a place of joy, had become the starting point of a new, uncertain path. She felt fear, sadness, and a strange sense of anger, not at anyone in particular, but at the circumstances that had brought her to this point. As the discussions continued, Mariana began to understand the expectations placed upon her. The elders spoke about marriage, about resolving honor, and about how a family's reputation could be affected by what seemed like a small incident. Mariana listened quietly, trying to absorb the meaning behind the words. She understood that her life might no longer be entirely her own. The path that lay ahead was uncertain, and it was being determined not by her dreams, but by the traditions and decisions of others. That afternoon, her parents took her aside. Her mother held her hands tightly and said, "Mariana, we must do what is best for the family. The elders have made it clear that the only way to restore balance is through a marriage that resolves the situation." Mariana's heart sank. She had imagined many things for her future: travel, education, freedom, but she had never imagined being pushed into a marriage she did not want. Her father spoke gently, "We do this to protect you. It is not easy, but it is necessary. One day you will understand." Mariana felt trapped. She wanted to cry, to run, to argue, but she also understood the limits of her voice in the face of long-standing traditions. She thought of Tomas, of her mother, and of her father. They were all caught in this same web of expectations. Her mind replayed the festival, the laughter, the music, and then the shot. That single moment had changed everything. She could feel the weight of the future pressing down on her, a heavy burden she was not ready to carry. Over the next few days, preparations began for the marriage. Mariana helped her mother with daily chores, but she noticed how her life had changed. Villagers spoke to her differently, some with pity, some with respect. Friends who had laughed with her at the festival now avoided certain topics, unsure of what to say. Mariana felt the loneliness of her situation, the sense that she had moved from childhood into a world governed by rules she had not chosen. Yet, even in her sadness, a small spark of determination remained. She refused to be completely defeated by circumstances she could not control. She began to observe her surroundings more carefully. She watched the elders, learning how they made decisions and how they justified their actions. She noticed the strength and wisdom in some of her peers, the ways they quietly resisted unfair expectations. Mariana realized that even in a village bound by tradition, there were small opportunities for agency, moments where one could make choices within the limits imposed by others. This realization gave her a quiet sense of hope, even as she faced the reality of her forced path. One evening, as the sun dipped below the hills and painted the desert in shades of gold and purple, Mariana sat outside with Tomas. He looked up at her and asked, "Will everything be okay?" She smiled, though it was a sad smile. "I don't know yet," she said honestly, "but we will face it together." In that moment, she understood something important. Even if the world around her seemed determined to take her freedom, she could still find strength within herself and protect the people she loved. The single shot had set a new course for her life, but it had also awakened her courage and her awareness of the power she carried within. As days passed, the preparations for the marriage continued. Mariana met the man she was expected to marry, a quiet and serious young man from another village. He was polite and respectful, but the thought of sharing her life with someone she had not chosen filled her with anxiety. She spent hours reflecting on her dreams, her desires, and the life she had imagined. Despite the fear and sadness, she began to make plans, small and careful plans, to preserve her sense of self even within the confines of the marriage. The villagers watched closely as the arrangements moved forward. Conversations continued about honor, responsibility, and the need to maintain peace. Mariana observed and listened, learning about human behavior, about the strength of tradition, and about the ways people justified actions in the name of community. She understood that the world was complex, and that life often demanded difficult choices. Even in the face of challenges, she felt a growing determination to hold onto her identity and to find ways to navigate a life that had been dramatically altered by a single shot. On the morning before the ceremony, Mariana walked through the village one last time as a free young woman. She felt the weight of the future pressing down on her, but she also felt the strength of her ancestors, the love of her family, and the quiet determination that had been growing within her since the festival. The desert stretched endlessly around her, a reminder of both limitations and possibilities. She knew that the path ahead would not be easy, that there would be moments of fear, sadness, and uncertainty, but she also knew that she had survived the first shock, the first challenge. She was ready to face whatever came next, carrying her dreams, her courage, and her spirit into a life that had been reshaped by forces beyond her control. The day of the marriage arrived with the rising sun, casting a golden light over the village. The air was filled with the scent of flowers, freshly baked bread, and roasting corn. Villagers moved quietly, some helping with decorations, others preparing food, and a few whispering in corners about the recent events. Mariana stood in her small room, her hands clasped tightly together. She wore a simple dress her mother had sewn, decorated with subtle embroidery, and a scarf carefully wrapped around her hair. Her heart pounded with a mix of fear, uncertainty, and quiet determination. She was about to enter a life she had not chosen, a path she had never imagined for herself, yet she understood the importance of courage in the face of the unknown. Her mother came in silently, placing a gentle hand on Mariana's shoulder. "You are strong, Mariana," she said softly. "Remember who you are and carry yourself with dignity. This is not the end of your life, it is a part of it. You must learn to find strength even in moments you cannot control." Mariana nodded, trying to hold back tears. She had always admired her mother's quiet wisdom, and now, more than ever, she realized how important it was to listen and learn from her. Her father appeared at the door, nodding solemnly. "We are proud of you," he said simply. "Face this with courage and do not forget yourself." As the ceremony began, the village gathered in the small square, filled with both curiosity and respect. The elders sat at the front, overseeing the proceedings, while families and friends formed circles around them. Mariana felt the weight of hundreds of eyes on her, each glance reminding her of the expectations placed upon her and her family. The man she was to marry, Daniel, stepped forward. He was older than her by several years, quiet, with a serious expression that revealed little of his emotions. Mariana observed him carefully, noting the politeness in his gestures but also the distance in his eyes. They had met briefly in the days leading up to the ceremony, exchanging only words that were necessary. Now, they were to begin a life together, bound by tradition and circumstance. The ritual began with the elders speaking about honor, family, and the responsibilities of marriage. Mariana listened closely, trying to understand the meaning behind each word, each gesture. The ceremony was simple yet solemn, a blend of customs that had been followed for generations. As the elders pronounced their blessings, Mariana felt a strange mixture of fear and resolve. She understood that this marriage was not a reflection of her desires, but it did not have to define the entirety of her life. She could still carry her dreams, her sense of self, and her strength within her, even as she navigated the challenges ahead. After the ceremony, Mariana and Daniel were led to their new home, a modest house on the edge of the village. It was quiet and simple, much like her childhood home, but it felt different now. The rooms seemed larger, yet more confining. She explored each corner, noting the small kitchen, the living area, and the bedroom where she would sleep. Daniel followed her quietly, polite but distant. They exchanged few words, each of them aware of the new roles they were expected to play. Mariana felt a pang of loneliness, realizing that the life she had imagined, full of freedom, laughter, and exploration, was temporarily out of reach. In the days that followed, Mariana struggled to adjust. The routines of married life were unfamiliar and sometimes frustrating. She was expected to assist with cooking, cleaning, and managing household responsibilities, all while learning the expectations of her new role. Daniel was quiet, often absorbed in his work, leaving Mariana to navigate the home alone. At first, she felt isolated, missing the laughter of her family and the freedom of her childhood. Yet, she also recognized that this was a time for learning, for observing, and for discovering the small ways she could maintain her identity within the confines of her new life. One morning, Mariana woke early and stepped outside to watch the sunrise. The desert stretched endlessly before her, a landscape both familiar and new. She remembered the festival, the shot, and the conversations of the elders. Each memory carried a lesson, a reminder of the fragility and unpredictability of life. She realized that, even in this marriage, she could find moments of strength and clarity. She began to plan small routines for herself, reading early in the morning before anyone else woke, writing thoughts and dreams in a small notebook, and taking walks in the surrounding desert to clear her mind. These small acts became a lifeline, a way to preserve her sense of self. As Mariana settled into the rhythms of her new life, she began to notice subtle changes in her relationship with Daniel. At first, there was distance and formality, but gradually, small moments of kindness appeared. Daniel would bring water while she worked, offer brief words of encouragement, or smile in acknowledgement of her efforts. These gestures, though simple, reminded Mariana that even within constraints, human connection could exist. She began to see that respect and understanding were possible, even in situations she had not chosen. Despite these small victories, challenges remained. Mariana struggled with the expectations of the villagers, who would occasionally visit, offering advice, reminders, or criticism. Their opinions were often steeped in tradition, emphasizing obedience and compliance. Mariana learned to navigate these interactions carefully, speaking respectfully while maintaining her inner resolve. She discovered that wisdom was not only in obedience, but also in understanding the limits of her choices and finding creative ways to assert herself without defying the rules outright. Mariana also began to notice her own resilience. She had survived the festival, the shot, and the sudden changes that followed. She realized that her strength was not only in enduring hardship, but also in observing, learning, and adapting. She began to set small goals for herself, to finish a book she had always wanted to read, to learn new skills in cooking and sewing, and to understand the customs that governed her life. Each small accomplishment brought a sense of control and achievement, reminding her that even in a life shaped by circumstances, she could still grow and thrive. As weeks turned into months, Mariana developed a cautious routine. She learned the rhythms of the household, the ways to communicate with Daniel, and the subtle rules that governed village life. She also continued to nurture her dreams quietly, keeping her notebook close, writing stories and thoughts, and imagining the possibilities of the future. In her heart, she held onto the hope that one day, she could explore the world beyond the desert, while also fulfilling her duties and maintaining harmony in her new life. During this time, Mariana faced moments of doubt and frustration. There were days when she felt trapped, overwhelmed by the expectations placed upon her, and frustrated by the lack of freedom. Yet, each challenge became a lesson in resilience, patience, and self-discovery. She learned that strength was not only in resistance, but also in understanding, observation, and the ability to find peace within her circumstances. Her identity, though tested, remained intact, carried in her thoughts, her dreams, and the quiet determination that had always been a part of her. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky in shades of red and gold, Mariana sat outside the small house with her notebook. She wrote about the festival, the shot, the meeting of the elders, and the first days of her marriage. She reflected on her feelings, fear, sadness, hope, and determination, and recorded her plans for the future. In those moments, she felt a sense of empowerment, realizing that though the world had pushed her onto an unexpected path, she still had the ability to shape her experiences, to learn, and to grow. Mariana began to find beauty in small, everyday moments. The laughter of children playing in the village square, the quiet conversations with Daniel, the smell of fresh bread baking in the morning, all of these became reminders that life continued, and that joy could be found even in difficult circumstances. She discovered that strength was not only in resisting the world, but also in embracing its small gifts, learning from them, and using them to build a foundation for the future she hoped to create. Months passed, and Mariana began to feel a sense of stability in her new life. She had adapted to her surroundings, formed a cautious understanding with Daniel, and discovered ways to preserve her identity. She realized that while the single shot that had disrupted her life had pushed her into an unexpected marriage, it had also revealed her inner strength and resilience. She was learning not only to survive, but also to thrive within the boundaries set by tradition and circumstance. By the end of the first year of her marriage, Mariana had grown in ways she had never anticipated. She had learned patience, observation, and the importance of maintaining dignity under pressure. She had discovered moments of kindness and understanding, even in unexpected places. And most importantly, she had preserved her dreams, her sense of self, and the quiet determination that had always guided her. The village, once filled with whispers and judgment, now saw Mariana as a young woman of strength and resilience, navigating her path with grace and wisdom. Though the journey was far from over, Mariana had proven to herself that even in a life shaped by events beyond her control, she could find ways to maintain hope, courage, and a sense of purpose. The single shot that had once shattered her world had set her on a path of growth, self-discovery, and inner strength, a journey that would continue for years to come, filled with challenges, lessons, and moments of quiet triumph. Life in the house had become routine, yet for Mariana, each day carried a mix of challenges and lessons. The desert sun rose early, painting the walls of her home in golden light, and she would wake to the quiet sounds of birds and the soft hum of morning chores. Daniel was usually up before her, tending to work that needed strength and focus, leaving Mariana to manage the household responsibilities. Cooking, cleaning, and maintaining the home occupied much of her day, and at first, she felt overwhelmed by the weight of these duties. Yet over time, she discovered that even within these routines, she could create small moments of control and joy. She began her mornings with small tasks done carefully and thoughtfully. Preparing bread became more than a duty. It was an opportunity to focus and reflect. Folding laundry, sweeping the floors, and arranging the few decorative items in their home became acts of expression. In these quiet moments, Mariana realized that even though her freedom was limited, she could still make decisions about how she spent her time, how she approached her responsibilities, and how she nurtured her own sense of self. Small acts of care became a way to preserve her dignity and her spirit. Outside the house, village life continued as usual. Children ran along dusty streets, merchants displayed their wares, and neighbors shared news and advice. Mariana often watched from the doorway or from the small courtyard, observing the world beyond the walls of her home. She noticed how families interacted, how elders guided their children, and how people navigated the balance between tradition and personal choice. These observations became lessons in human behavior, helping Mariana understand the ways in which she could navigate her own life carefully, without losing her voice entirely. One of the biggest challenges was learning to communicate with Daniel. He was a quiet man, serious and thoughtful, often reserved in his expressions. At first, their interactions were limited to necessary words, requests for chores, brief conversations about meals, and discussions about the village. Mariana felt the distance between them acutely, a reminder of the life she had not chosen. Yet, she began to notice small gestures that revealed his respect for her. He would occasionally bring water without being asked, or offer a word of encouragement when she completed a difficult task. These gestures, though small, became points of connection, slowly easing the tension of their unfamiliar relationship. Mariana also discovered that subtle rebellion could be a form of empowerment. She started spending a few minutes each morning writing in her notebook, recording her thoughts, dreams, and observations. She read quietly whenever she could, learning from the books she had longed to explore. Even these small acts were significant. They reminded her that her mind and spirit were her own, even if her circumstances were not. She began to understand that resilience was not only about enduring challenges, but also about finding ways to maintain her identity and her passions, even in small, quiet ways. The villagers occasionally visited, offering advice or reminders of her duties. Some spoke with kindness, others with judgment. Mariana learned to listen respectfully while maintaining her inner sense of self. She discovered the importance of patience, observation, and subtle assertiveness. She could navigate the expectations of others without completely surrendering to them. Every interaction became a lesson in strategy, understanding, and personal strength. She realized that the ability to survive and thrive within limitations was a powerful skill, one that would serve her for years to come. Despite the challenges, there were moments of joy. Mariana found satisfaction in mastering household skills, in creating meals that brought comfort, and in observing the beauty of the desert around her. Sunsets became a time of reflection, the sky ablaze with colors that reminded her of the possibilities still ahead. She took walks when she could, exploring the desert near her home, observing the plants, animals, and the subtle rhythms of the natural world. These walks became a form of freedom, a way to step outside the boundaries of her home while still remaining safe and respectful of her circumstances. Mariana's relationship with Daniel slowly evolved. He remained serious and quiet, yet she began to see glimpses of understanding and cooperation. They worked together in small ways. He would help with heavier tasks. She would learn to manage household responsibilities efficiently. They developed a rhythm, a quiet partnership built on necessity and respect rather than passion or love. Mariana realized that relationships could take many forms and that her role within this marriage was one of strength, patience, and careful negotiation. She learned to assert herself gently, to communicate her needs without confrontation, and to find moments of cooperation that made daily life smoother and more bearable. Her family continued to play a role in her life as well. Letters from her mother and visits from relatives reminded her that she was not alone. Their support, encouragement, and advice became lifelines, offering emotional sustenance during difficult days. Mariana drew strength from these connections, realizing that while her immediate circumstances were challenging, she was part of a larger network of love and care. She used these connections to maintain hope and perspective, understanding that her life, though altered, still held potential for growth and fulfillment. One afternoon, Mariana noticed a group of young women gathering near the village square. They were chatting quietly, exchanging stories and advice about life, marriage, and family. Mariana observed them carefully, realizing that even in her constrained situation, she could learn from their experiences. She began to participate subtly, listening more than speaking at first, but gradually finding her voice. These interactions provided a sense of community outside her home, a reminder that connection and support could exist even within a framework of tradition and expectation. Mariana also began to find small ways to improve her household. She rearranged furniture to make the space more comfortable, planted a small garden in the courtyard, and experimented with new recipes. Each improvement, though minor, became a way to exercise creativity and agency. These actions reminded her that even within constraints, she could make decisions, solve problems, and create beauty. They became acts of empowerment, reinforcing the idea that her life was not entirely determined by others. Over time, Mariana noticed that her confidence grew. She was more comfortable interacting with Daniel, more adept at managing household responsibilities, and more skillful in navigating the expectations of the village. She had developed routines that preserved her identity, maintained her dreams, and allowed her to exert influence over her immediate environment. She realized that life did not always follow the path one imagines, but it could still be meaningful, fulfilling, and rich with opportunities for growth. Despite the progress, challenges persisted. There were days when she felt frustration, sadness, and longing for the freedom she had once taken for granted. The expectations of marriage, family, and tradition sometimes felt heavy, and the weight of responsibility could be overwhelming. Yet Mariana learned to manage these feelings, to find balance, and to channel her energy into productive and meaningful actions. She discovered that resilience was not about avoiding hardship, but about facing it with patience, wisdom, and determination. As the seasons changed, Mariana began to see the subtle rewards of her perseverance. The household ran smoothly. Daniel showed small but consistent gestures of cooperation, and she had carved out moments of personal growth and learning. She continued to write in her notebook, explore the desert, and nurture her dreams quietly. Each day, she felt a little stronger, a little wiser, and a little more capable of navigating the challenges that life presented. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Mariana sat in the courtyard and reflected on her journey. She thought about the festival, the shot, the sudden changes in her life, and the marriage she had entered. She realized that each challenge had taught her something valuable, about strength, patience, creativity, and the power of quiet resilience. She understood that while her path had been altered by forces beyond her control, she had the ability to shape her experiences, maintain her identity, and find fulfillment even in unexpected circumstances. Mariana looked at the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. She remembered her dreams of exploring the world, learning new things, and experiencing life beyond the village. Though those dreams were still far away, she felt a renewed sense of hope. She knew that her journey was far from over, that challenges would continue to appear, and that life would demand courage and wisdom at every step. Yet she also knew that she had the strength to face whatever came next, to grow, and to find ways to preserve her spirit and her sense of self. In the quiet of the night, Mariana felt a deep sense of accomplishment. She had survived the first year of marriage, adapted to her new responsibilities, and discovered her inner strength. She had learned to navigate complex relationships, to communicate with care and respect, and to find small ways to assert herself within the boundaries of tradition. Most importantly, she had preserved her dreams, her identity, and her hope for the future. The challenges had not defeated her, they had strengthened her, preparing her for the next chapters of her life, which were still waiting to unfold. The years had passed quietly, yet they had shaped Mariana in ways she could never have imagined. She had grown from the frightened girl who had been pushed into a marriage. She did not choose into a woman of strength, patience, and quiet wisdom. Life had not been easy, but each challenge had taught her something important, about herself, about human nature, and about the ways she could navigate a world that sometimes demanded compromise without surrendering the essence of who she was. Mariana woke early one morning, as she always did, to the soft glow of the desert sun. The house was peaceful. Daniel was already tending to the small garden they had nurtured together over the years. The plants were thriving, a symbol of life continuing despite challenges, and Mariana felt a deep sense of pride and connection to the work they had built together. She moved to the kitchen, preparing breakfast with care, her mind reflecting on all that had changed since the day of the festival, the single shot, and the moment that had pushed her life onto this unexpected path. Her thoughts drifted to her family. Her mother's wisdom, her father's quiet strength, and Tomas's cheerful energy had been guiding lights through difficult times. She remembered the fear she had felt, the confusion and the sadness, but she also remembered the determination that had grown within her. That determination had become a constant companion, guiding her choices, helping her learn, adapt, and find joy even when life seemed unfair. Mariana realized that, while her circumstances had been imposed by tradition and events beyond her control, her inner life had remained hers to shape. Mariana had also developed a deep understanding of Daniel. Though their marriage had started with distance and formality, it had slowly grown into a partnership based on mutual respect. He was still quiet and serious, but she now recognized the strength and reliability in his character. Small gestures of kindness had grown into trust, and shared responsibilities had created a rhythm in their home that was both predictable and comforting. Mariana had learned that relationships could evolve, even when they began under difficult circumstances, and that patience and understanding could create bonds stronger than fear or resistance. The village had also changed over the years. The elders, who had once insisted on rigid adherence to tradition, now occasionally sought Mariana's advice. They recognized her intelligence, her calm judgment, and her ability to navigate complex situations. Her voice, once quiet and uncertain, now carried weight, and people listened when she spoke. Mariana understood that influence did not always come from authority alone, but also from respect earned through thoughtfulness, patience, and consistency. She felt a quiet satisfaction in knowing that she had earned this place in her community without betraying her principles or compromising her identity. Despite her growing confidence, Mariana continued to nurture her personal dreams. She had returned to her studies in small ways, learning through books brought by relatives and friends, and teaching herself subjects she had always wanted to explore. Reading became a source of freedom, a way to imagine worlds beyond the desert while remaining grounded in her own reality. She also began sharing stories with children in the village, encouraging them to dream, to learn, and to imagine possibilities beyond what seemed immediately available. These small acts of teaching and mentorship brought her joy and reinforced her sense of purpose. Mariana's life also included moments of quiet rebellion, small ways in which she asserted her autonomy. She took walks in the desert, explored new paths, and tended to a private garden filled with herbs and flowers of her choosing. She made decisions about her home, her routines, and even the ways she communicated with Daniel, always ensuring that her voice was present, even if subtly. These acts, though not grand or dramatic, were vital expressions of her independence and resilience. Mariana had learned that true freedom often begins with small, deliberate choices. One day, a traveler came to the village, bringing news from the distant towns and cities beyond the desert. Mariana listened with fascination as he described schools, libraries, and marketplaces filled with people from all walks of life. Stories of innovation, knowledge, and exploration filled her imagination, igniting the same spark of curiosity she had felt as a young girl. Though her responsibilities remained, she felt a renewed determination to continue learning, to seek knowledge wherever possible, and to maintain her connection to a world that had once seemed out of reach. Mariana also began to consider the next phase of her life. She wanted to ensure that her experiences could help others, that the lessons she had learned could provide guidance and inspiration. She began organizing small gatherings for women in the village, teaching practical skills, literacy, and the importance of resilience. These gatherings became a space of empowerment, a place where women could share their stories, learn from each other, and discover their own strength. Mariana felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that her life, shaped by unexpected challenges, could now serve as a source of hope and guidance for others. Her relationship with Daniel continued to evolve as well. They had learned to communicate effectively, to share responsibilities, and to support each other's growth. Though love had not been immediate, respect, understanding, and partnership had created a bond that was both stable and meaningful. Mariana realized that relationships could take many forms, and that the measure of their success was not always passion, but the ability to grow together, navigate challenges, and maintain dignity and mutual respect. Mariana also reflected on the pivotal moment of her life, the single shot that had changed everything. She understood that it had been an event beyond her control, yet it had also catalyzed a journey of growth, resilience, and self-discovery. That one incident, which had once filled her with fear and despair, had ultimately revealed her inner strength and determination. Mariana recognized that life's challenges often carried hidden lessons, and that even painful experiences could become opportunities for personal development and empowerment. As the years continued, Mariana became a respected figure in the village, a symbol of strength, resilience, and quiet wisdom. She had learned to balance tradition with personal growth, responsibility with independence, and duty with self-expression. Her influence extended beyond her household, shaping the lives of children, women, and fellow villagers who looked to her for guidance, advice, and inspiration. Mariana had transformed the challenges of her past into a foundation for a meaningful, purposeful life. Even in moments of solitude, Mariana found contentment. She would sit under the vast desert sky, watching the stars emerge one by one, reflecting on the journey that had brought her here. She thought about her family, her responsibilities, her dreams, and her growth. Each challenge, each moment of fear or sadness, had taught her patience, courage, and the value of persistence. She realized that life, though unpredictable, was also rich with opportunities to learn, to adapt, and to find fulfillment. One evening, Daniel and Mariana sat together in the small courtyard, the garden bathed in the soft glow of lanterns. They spoke quietly, sharing thoughts about the future, the village, and their hopes for the next generation. Mariana felt a deep sense of peace, recognizing that while her life had begun in unexpected circumstances, she had found stability, purpose, and even joy. Her journey had not been easy, but it had allowed her to discover the strength within herself and the capacity to influence her world positively. Mariana also continued to nurture her personal dreams. She began corresponding with teachers and scholars from nearby towns, learning about history, science, and literature. She encouraged children to read and explore, sharing her love of knowledge and the importance of curiosity. Her house became a place of learning, reflection, and inspiration, a space where tradition and personal growth could coexist. Mariana had transformed her experiences into a source of empowerment, both for herself and for those around her. The story of Mariana's life became a quiet legend in the village. People spoke of her resilience, her wisdom, and her ability to navigate challenges with grace and dignity. Her journey from the day of the festival, through the fear and uncertainty of her early marriage, to the empowerment she had achieved, became an example for others. Mariana's life demonstrated that even in difficult circumstances, one could find strength, maintain identity, and create a meaningful path. As Mariana reflected on her journey, she realized that the single shot that had once caused fear and uncertainty had become a turning point that shaped her life in profound ways. It had pushed her into circumstances she had not chosen, but it had also revealed her inner strength, determination, and capacity for growth. She understood that life would always present challenges, but with courage, patience, and resilience, it was possible to navigate those challenges and emerge stronger, wiser, and more empowered. In the quiet of the night, under the stars that had watched over her since childhood, Mariana felt a deep sense of accomplishment. She had survived, adapted, and thrived. She had learned the value of patience, the importance of self-expression, and the power of quiet determination. Her life, shaped by both events beyond her control and the choices she had made, had become a story of resilience, empowerment, and hope. Mariana knew that the journey would continue, with new challenges and opportunities ahead, but she also knew that she was ready, equipped with the strength and wisdom she had gained over the years. And in that moment, Mariana understood something vital. Life's greatest lessons often come from its unexpected turns. What begins as fear